So, first of all, just for those who are new here, Pandion Music Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're a free online platform empowering artists as they navigate the music industry through educational resources, workshops, wellness guidance, and direct access to experts. We just started a wellness program recently, which is free live streams on our Facebook and Instagram. So if you haven't caught one of those yet, be sure to check them out. They're on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And then we run these workshops once a week on Wednesdays with different experts from the industry, different areas of the industry, and people join us, and it's wonderful. And it's just so great to be able to help kind of bridge the gap between experts in the industry and then emerging artists who might not have the resources financially to pay for courses or more traditional education. So yeah, it's been wonderful, and we're excited to have you here. Tony, I'm really excited to get started because I listened to a podcast that you were on, and I think that's how I originally discovered you. And then I also ended up actually working with one of your employees, one of the mastering engineers that you work with, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was more connected because I actually did that virtually, and I know that because I just sent him my stuff when I was actually back in the States, and he did the mastering remotely. So
Nice.
yeah, so I was connected with you. I've been connected with you in different ways actually before we even met, which was cool. But yeah, so for those who don't know, Tony is the owner and founder of Deluxe Mastering in Melbourne, Australia, but works with people all over the world, has 40 years of experience in the music industry, and also speaks to aspiring engineers through his inspirational talks, covering topics like starting in the industry, networking, and mental health. And that was kind of what drew me to the podcast I heard you on, actually, because you just had some really cool things to say and interesting insight. So yeah, so welcome. Excited to have you.
Well, thank you. It's lovely to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you guys in the hope that somebody picks up on something. And I've sometimes I've referred to myself as wanting to be just a domino, and by that I mean I just want to give enough that creates just enough force to tip someone in another direction, at 1 degree of separation, if you will, because I know myself in my life, I've had pivotal moments where someone just said something to me and it made me think differently. And if someone is watching or listening today with some sort of feeling that it's too hard or I can't get in there, I hope that I can maybe take somebody from, if you are, assuming you are feeling a bit that way, the feeling of, oh, it's too hard, I don't think I can do this. I hope I can share somebody, as I said, if you're feeling that way, to, maybe I can. And if I can do that today for somebody, then I've done my job. Anything above and beyond that, as far as I'm concerned, I'll consider a bonus. So I'm here today to answer all your questions. I'll try and give you as much value as I can, as much insight as I can. Obviously we have a limited amount of time, but I will attempt to. But I'm here for as long as you require me, and
That's great.
I will give you. I'll give you all that I can give you today. So
Great. Thank you so much. I'd love for you to kind of give more of a background on just to give people a better idea of how you started, how you got to where you are, what got you into mastering specifically. Would love to hear more about that.
Okay. So I was always interested in music as a child, as far back as I could remember. The first time when music just completely mesmerized me was I was 7 years old listening to Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. My dad was a collector of hi-fi and he had reel-to-reel machines, and so I used to get on there and he just worked out how to thread a tape, and as a child I had no understanding of production or nuance or songwriting or arrangement, but just hearing it just affected me, and so that's when music for the first time really just rocked my world. always wanted to be involved in music. I hated school. I did well at school, but I hated it. I always knew I wanted to do something with music. I started playing guitar at high school. Um, so year 7, or what we called Form 1 back in the day, or year 7 today. Worked out very early that I didn't have the talent or the looks to become a performer. So I knew that I had to do something behind the scenes. Obviously, I didn't know what, but I listened to a lot of records, collected records, was a very avid fan of looking at the liner notes on the sleeves, and I'd always sort of see engineers, producers, and look at all these names, and thought, all right, I want to do that. So at 15, I remember being 15 years of age, where I made a pact with myself that I was not going to do work that I didn't want to do, because I realized that I had to spend much of my waking hours working. So logic told me I better find something I like to do, and I wanted to do music. Didn't exactly know what aspect of it, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So, I finished school. I didn't do the law degree that I was supposed to do, much to my father's chagrin, and I immediately just packed my bags with no money. I went to New York City, just banged on doors, and said, "Hey, I'm here." Now you got to understand that back in the day, there was no internet. It was all writing letters by hand, and a phone call, a 3-minute phone call to America from Australia was like $20, completely different to today. But I did contact as many people as I could, wrote letters, and just fronted up pretty much unannounced. And the Americans loved that. They thought I was crazy, that I would just turn up over there with no money. Again, people think I was brave. I think I was just naive and stupid. But I was just so driven and in what I wanted to do. And I wanted to become a recording engineer and a producer, because that's all I knew. Mastering was something that I didn't know anything about until I had the good fortune to meet a mastering guy. And I remember I was in one of the studios I was just hanging out in, and met a guy who was a mastering engineer. Told him I was from Australia. Of course, he was fascinated with me. We started chatting. He said, "Hey, how'd you get into this?" I said, "Hey, well, I'm a record collector. I DJ'd a bit." He said, "Oh, you're a DJ. But how'd you like to know how to cut your own records?" So I was intrigued by that. I said, "Okay, well, what does that involve?" He said, "Well, it's mastering. I'm a mastering engineer. This is what I do. Would you like to come and have a look at what it's about?" So I thought, okay. So I went and went to his studio, had a look, and there was a lathe and a tape machine, and the first thing that struck me was how quick the process was in comparison to mixing and recording, which could take days or weeks. And so someone with and still does have ADD, that was very appealing to me. I thought that the speed of it, and also that there was a rotation, or not a rotation as much, but there was you would get to go through different kinds of jobs, which meant if you didn't like the particular record you were working on, it doesn't matter. A couple of hours later, there'd be something else that you would like, plus variety of work of jobs. And so he said to me, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I want to be a producer. I want to be a mix engineer." I mean, that's what all the rock stars are. That's what I knew. They're the names that I knew growing up, listening to records and looking at the credits. And he said, "Well, have a think about this. You can do that. You can go to that studio. You're probably one of the best studios in New York. And you could, you'll start at the bottom and you'll clean ashtrays like you're doing now, and you may be able to work up. Or we have a shortage of engineers here because no one really knows about mastering. There was no prestige, no profile in that part of the industry. Still, I mean, mastering been going on for a while, but as far as independent studios operating, it was still relatively new." He said, "Well, look, you can go there, and it might take you 5, 6, 7, 8 years before you might become an assistant, and then you're gonna have to work through becoming an assistant, and it could take you, 12 years or so before you might become an in-house engineer. But right now," he said, "there's a shortage here. I need people. We can get you up and running in 6 months." So I thought, wow, okay, I never got into this to become a rock star. I wanted a job that I loved to do, and I wanted to be able to make a living. And so I just took a pragmatic decision and said, "Okay, sign me up. Let's let's learn about mastering. And so that's why I often tell people that mastering found me. It wasn't something that I grew up specifically wanting to be. And interestingly, I find that when I do go and do talks to people, even today, even with mastering, having people, more and more people knowing what it is and how it works, that still people want to be mix engineers, recording engineers. I get that. But I strongly suggest if anyone wants to look at mastering, then it's a good thing to do. Although the flip side to that is, in the current market, with the way things are, I think it would be wise for all of you who have any aspirations of wanting to participate in audio professionally, is to become conversant and skilled in recording, in mixing and mastering. Although if you wanted to look at mastering as a niche, I think it's a pretty cool thing to do. So that's pretty much a little background growing up, how I got started into that. And so moving on from there real quick, I'll just to bring us to the present day. I came back to Australia in 1991, and this was during the recession we had to have. No job, no money, nowhere to live, but I had some experience in digital audio because digital audio was in its infancy, and so I was very good at using a thing called Sound Tools, which was the precursor to Pro Tools, and I managed to wrangle a machine on credit through a distributor here, and started just doing mainly editing for people, and then slowly got my gear together and built a studio that started on a coffee table in a flat. And from there, that progressed into a bedroom. And from the bedroom, I went, my now former wife and I purchased a house which had, we bought it because it had a bungalow in the back. Started a studio there. And then from there, I went to Sing Sing, which unfortunately is now closed down. And it was that was in 2000. And it was really my tenure at Sing Sing that gave me, let's just say, credibility in the eyes of the industry. And that's where I really made some kind of name for myself. And that was there till 2000, early 2006. And then from there, I migrated here to Brunswick, and I've been here for 17 years. And here we are today.
That's such a great story, like just starting from not knowing a single thing about like the technology behind what goes on with audio engineering, and then getting to where you are. It's very impressive. I would love to know more about, and other people, because I mean I know generally what mastering is and what it does for a song, but could you talk a little bit more about the actual like tech side of it? What are you doing like when you're sitting behind your computer actually working on a song exactly?
Sure. Okay. So essentially what I'm doing is when I listen to a mix, first thing I need to do is to ascertain the suitability. And by suitability, I mean how good the mix is. Now, I don't consider myself to be the taste police, and when I go through this exercise, I'm not looking at the minutiae and the tiniest little details and to nitpick at the mix. My concern is that I need to listen to a mix in this room and be able to decide straight away, can I work on this mix to a point where I feel I can give some value? And if I can't, and there's no gray area here, it's really going to stand out that, okay, this mix needs some help. This mix needs to go back, because as a mastering engineer, I'm always at the mercy of the final mix. There's a left channel, the right channel. I cannot dig in to the song and work on any individual components. I often say that mastering is all about the forest and mixing is about the trees. So if I ascertain that there's issues and I identify those issues, and then I will call my client and say, hey, if you're open to constructive input here, it would really help my cause if you would bring down the vocals by 1 dB or the bass up a little bit, or the guitars are a little bit edgy. Could you maybe smooth? So I will, I'll bring up the things that I'm not going to be able to do adequately. And then once those things are addressed, then I'm able to work on it. Now, what I'm basically doing to a song is I'm trying to make it sound balanced. So if the song sounds a little bit more high pitched or a bit more treble, I'm going to try and see if I can even that. Either, depends on whether sometimes I'll have to bring things down to balance the sound out, or I may have to add certain things. It's always the way I operate is I operate on a very sort of broad, subtle change to a mix. And we're trying to get it to a level of completion. And I'm trying to emulate what it feels like for the end user. So what's it going to feel like for Johnny Punchclock when he hits play? And that's the kind of feeling I'm trying to imagine, and that visceral experience. Now that doesn't mean that I'm working too quickly, but I'm trying to gather the impact. And as I say, you can only listen to a song for the first time once. Doesn't mean I have to get it done first time, but the more you hear something, then you can start to lose your objectivity. And then, my job is to try and be that objective third party who's able to understand the vision of the artist, and yet to be able to hear it in a way that has the similar impact that it's going to have on the end user, and trying to traverse those two worlds. So I often say that my job is I'm a facilitator to help an artist realize their vision for their art. And sometimes they will give me carte blanche and they trust me, which is wonderful. But I always try to engage the client. Part of my job is to be able to not second guess, but to be able to read their mind. I think a good engineer worth their salt should be able to listen to some music and go, okay, I can hear where we're going here, and then know what to do to take it to that level. So I use gear, the equalizer, so I can. So here's my console. I hope that's okay. You can see.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Great.
Okay. So there's various equalizers and compressors. I have a variety of different things. And I think the best way to describe this, it's like, think of this as a palette of different colors. So there are some compressors that are valve driven, some are solid state, same with the EQ, and they all have a different characteristic. And sometimes, again, like a palette with colors, you might want to blend a little bit of blue and yellow to create green. So there's a whole bunch of tools here that I can use in isolation or in combination, again, depending on the music. There's no one size fits all approach to how I master. I often get people saying, well, what do you do here? Thinking that there's some kind of secret juju or formula that just works each time, every time. And that's not the case at all. The only constant is that you want to make the track sound as good as possible, and not only make the track sound good, but it also you want to achieve a thing called translation. Now, translation is when, or good translation is when a master is able to be played on a different variety of playback systems and it still sounds okay. So whether you play it on your phone, on a laptop, in the car, on a big club system, on the radio, you don't want something where it's like, oh, it sounds good in my room, but when it plays in the car, it sounds a bit bassy, and when I put it on the earbuds, it sounds a bit thin. That's not what you want. Ideally, of course, it's not going to sound exactly the same, but you want to have a level of consistency through those different playback mediums. So that is another. That's another important factor that something important that you want to achieve in a good master. The only time you ever would have to approach something a little bit differently is when you're mastering for vinyl. Vinyl is a slightly different animal. So there's just a few little tweaks. I could go into it, but I don't know how technical you guys are or how deep we can go on that. But at base level, mastering for vinyl is a slightly different art than it is for digital.
So you have to make like completely separate
Yeah, you have to
masters
make a
for,
separate master. So essentially,
yeah.
so basically, for a client that wants to release digitally and on vinyl,
Mm.
I start with doing the digital version first, and then from there I will make the necessary tweaks from there for it to be more compatible for vinyl, and even so, it'll also depend on things like how long the side is going to be, whether it's going to be 33 or 45 RPM. So even down to that. So once I've got that information at hand, then I can, and unless you've actually cut lacquers before and understand how they work and the physics of it, I guess, you're not. I'm not saying and claiming that you guys won't at some stage be able to master for vinyl and do it well. Not at all. What I'm saying is that as someone that has actually started off life as a cutting engineer and having an intimate understanding of how lathes work and how the medium works, I can take those things more into account when I'm mastering. But it is I do have to generate a separate master in those situations.
Yeah, interesting. Someone was just saying here the that they've heard you can master specifically for different, this looks like all digital, like Tidal, Atmos, etc. They said.
Well,
So can you master separate things for all, or is digital kind of just clumped into one thing and then
okay,
final?
all right. So again, depending on who you, one thing you'll find that even amongst my peers, there are some differences of opinion on certain things. And there's been, for example, back in the day, there was quite a debate about radio, that there was some formula that, and I remember getting into quite a big public spat with an engineer over this. And my argument was, well, no, I don't. So, okay. So the popular consensus back then was, if you want things to sound good on radio, you'd have to compress them so they appear to sound louder and more brightness. And not to say that wasn't valid, but my argument was that, again, going back to translation, that if you make it sound good in the first place, no matter what station it plays on, because every station was different. I also had a career in radio, Triple M here in Melbourne, right through the night from 91 to 99 inclusive. And I'd seen firsthand how it worked at radio and how the engineers who were adjusting the output were constantly tweaking. So the fact that it was a moving target, and the fact that, if, again, you try it yourself, you just go on terrestrial radio and you go from one station to another, they do have a different sound and they're constantly tweaking and they're in a state of flux. I'm not saying that they change wildly, but they still do change. So in that context, how is it then that you can kind of predict whether Triple J is going to be broadcasting a little bit brighter this week or a little bit warmer next week? You can't. So if it sounds good, it will just sound good no matter what. So if we fast forward now to the digital era and Spotify, again, I believe, there are people that say, well, it has to be a certain amount of LUFS and this and that. And I don't subscribe to any of that. Again, I just go with the same old argument of make it sound good. And no matter what digital platform plays it at, YouTube or Spotify, or, if they have their own little algorithm and little things that they use on the output, of their streaming service, if it sounds good in the first place, it should still sound good. So again, but unlike back in the day when I was a younger and angrier man who wanted to loved getting into online punch ups, I've become a more sedate man these days, and so I don't get into fights. And if I see something that I think is nonsense, I just let them go and I just carry on. I have no time or energy for getting into pointless spats and fights on air with people. It doesn't serve anyone much purpose.
Yeah. Good to have the focus on the art.
Oh,
Redirect,
totally.
redirect.
But again, yeah, being younger and more foolish and, like I said, more aggressive and angry. Thankfully, I've evolved a bit since then.
I was gonna ask you about your mentors actually, and the people that you looked up to when you were getting started, because that's such an important thing in all industries, but especially in the music industry, and especially for those who are self-taught in a way or who haven't had um, a general education in school for the topic. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned before the recording, on is it and Wednesday's photo, there's one of my mentors, Harry Weinberg, um, beautiful human, and again, just uh, showed me so much kindness to someone that he didn't know. He had no reason to want to help me. He was, one of the top dogs, but he took me under his wing, and he allowed me to sit in the studio and observe and ask questions, and he would show me things. And I think one of the greatest one of the greatest lessons how he taught me was the lesson of being patient, because I remember I was getting frustrated that I wasn't getting any big name records, and despite the fact I had a lot of experience under my belt, and I was just waiting and to get a, just a job from a major label or a major band. And he said to me, I'm not going to try and do his accent, but he said to me, look, it's all about the home run, and by that he meant a hit record, and that was something that was out of my hands. And he said, the moment you do a record that will start to get traction, he said, trust me, this is all about perception. And when people associate you with a certain record or in a certain style, your phone will start ringing. And lo and behold, he was absolutely right. And it's exactly how it went down. But I was grateful that he sat me down to encourage me to be patient. And also to understand that, which I think is also a great lesson, that the whole idea of doing what you do is about enjoying the process. The fact that I should have been grateful for the fact that I was actually working in an industry that I always wanted to get into, and I was making a living. And of course, it's great to have awards and hit records under your belt, and these things are the catalyst to bringing in more work. It's interesting because from the moment you got that so-called hit record, which really was not as a result of me. I mean, a hit record becomes a hit record because it's a good song, and B, because it's had the appropriate marketing and backing behind it, and maybe a little bit of luck as well. But it certainly wasn't because of me. I wasn't directly responsible for it. I just happened to be lucky enough to be a member on that team. But again, perception being how it works, people go, "Oh, that record, that's cool. Who worked on that? Oh, that guy. Okay." So then someone comes along with a record who want either something similar aesthetically or it's in a similar style. Straight away, they think, oh, you're the guy. Or they've got at least more confidence in you, whereas beforehand, I was an unknown quantity. I wasn't any worse an engineer. I was still good at what I did because obviously I did the work beforehand, and then it became a hit. But that's just the name of the game. So Howie, God bless him, was gave me that great advice and sort of calmed me down and allowed me to continue and just remind me that it was a numbers game and something was going to stick at some point. And again, came a little bit later for me than other engineers, but it came. So I have Howie to thank for that. Bob Ludwig, who just recently retired, who probably is considered the Mac Daddy of all the marching engineers. And again, I turned up to his place in Portland, and he was very gracious. And I think the Americans were just impressed with me because I was so committed to wanting to learn, and I was prepared to travel and have no money in my pocket, not knowing anybody. I just had this incredible drive, and I just wanted to succeed, and more so because I wanted to show my dad that music was viable, and it was a career path, and I really wanted to. I just really wanted to stick it up him, big time.
So you didn't have that support growing up
No, not
from
at
your
all. No,
parents?
no, no, not at all, not at all. It's interesting, when I was younger, I used to regret or resent my dad for that, and I've often wondered, would things have been different if my dad said to me when I was 15, 16, yes, son, you got my blessing, do it. The answer is I'll never know. What I do know, however, is the fact that he was so against it is what helped me develop that drive and that focus and that, forgive my language, that fuck you mentality, which has really served me well right through until today. Because as I said, well, I'm a much calmer individual these days. I still am very driven in what I do. I still am very passionate about what I do. I still love what I do. And I don't like being told what I can't do, because I will do all I can to prove you wrong. So I take that energy, that anger, if you will, and I channel it into focus on the task at hand, and then I'm just going to run through a brick wall at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear. It seems like, especially for musicians who often don't have the support, that foundation, that has to come from somewhere, that drive or that like the spark that, and it's different for everyone, of course, but it's always interesting to hear how the difference between where that comes from for individuals. And yeah.
Look, obviously, in an ideal world, it's nice if you can have people support you. Of course, I mean, logic would dictate that. But ultimately, even with that, ultimately, we have to depend on ourselves and rely on ourselves and look to ourselves to pick ourselves up when things aren't going great. People can be helpful and supportive up to a point, but ultimately, we're running our own race, and we have ultimately the responsibility to get things done. And if things go great, it's on us. That's great. But also we have to accept that things, when they don't go great, that we're equally to blame as we are to take credit for whatever that we do. And and also I learned not to want to get other people's approval, I guess. Again, I was very driven by that. And I realized, albeit lately in life, that no one really cares. They really don't. That's not me being dour and negative on life. Most people don't really care. Your validation needs to come from yourself first. And interestingly and ironically, as I discovered again late in life, I call myself a late bloomer. I'm the grand poobah of the Late Bloomer Society. That as I learned to let go of the need to be validated and accepted and appreciated, guess what? Validation just came quite naturally, without even having it unforced. It just sort of came because I wasn't seeking it. I was just happy doing my own thing, and other people started to take notice, and they came to me, and then other people started to beat my drum on my behalf. It's interesting how the irony is not lost on me, and I strongly encourage anyone, all my young mentees, as much as validation is something that's important, especially in the social media age where everyone wants to be looked at in this attention economy. When you stop the game of what do I need to do to grab attention, and just get on with what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing.
That's a great piece of advice, definitely. Do you have what do you do for yourself? Because it sounds like you have embraced that go-getter mentality, gonna go meet people, as many people as I can, doesn't matter what it takes kind of thing. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, with like kind of the diving in, the actual going out and like networking, if you want to call it, just making relationships and meeting people. But that's hard. It's hard for me. I know I've struggled with it in my music career too, but just like feeling like you're worthy of connecting with somebody at a higher level than you is sometimes hard, or just taking that step. And do you have any strategies that you've used for yourself to kind of put that aside and just be like, I'm going to go do it. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Now, so you raise an interesting point here, and that is that the reason why most of us won't go and do most things because of fear of rejection, lack of self-esteem. I think that all of us, to a point, have struggled with self-esteem and our self-worth. And so if our level of self-esteem isn't healthy, then we're going to tell ourselves a story that will I'm a nobody. What are they gonna? Why would they want to talk to me? I don't want to annoy them. I'm going to look like an idiot. And it is hard. It is hard to approach people, and I think it's all about the way you approach people. And as one of my mentors, Craig Harper, would say, you can't get good at what you avoid. So the only way you're going to get good at hitting people up is by, guess what? Hitting people up. So it comes down to, I believe, the approach. And most of us, and again, in my experience, when it came to looking to people that were the big dogs and the heavy hitters, I was really surprised as to how, generally speaking, they were quite accepting. Again, you approach people respectfully, and you're honest. I think that a mistake a lot of kids make is that, well, I'm not qualified enough to talk to this guy because, and I need to be up to a certain standard. And I don't believe that's the case. I think it's more important to be honest and to be able to tell. I will give more of my time and effort into someone who's honest enough to say, hey, listen, I know nothing. I know nothing about this stuff. I haven't gone to school. I'm just really interested. I'm really keen, as opposed to someone who's trying to impress me because they went and did a school. I know that the education industry doesn't particularly like me for this, and I'm not a big rat for formal education. I'm not saying it's invalid. I'm not saying that it hasn't got its place, but generally speaking, just because you have a degree, in my eyes, just because you have a degree, well, that tells me that you're disciplined, you've done the work, you've done all the assignments, and obviously you have a lot of knowledge and theory behind you. But in the context of what I would need someone for, is that's great to a point, but these are things you can learn on the job by actually observing and doing. I'm more interested in who you are as a person, character-wise. Are you honest? Do you have good work ethic? Can you show initiative? And obviously, as well as all those things that encompass being a professional, what makes a professional, and all the other stuff that can be, all the other stuff can be learnt, as far as I'm concerned. Now, if I wanted to, if I needed a tumor removed from my brain, then I'm going to want a neurosurgeon that's well qualified and and has all the degrees. But I think when it comes to art and creativity, a degree and a diploma is nice, and again, I don't want to diminish that in any way, but I don't think it is the be all and end all, and it's the ticket that's going to get you into places and open the doors for you. So going back to approaching people, I would encourage all of you to, if there's any people that you want to be mentored by, I would encourage you, first off, to do your homework on the person that you want to be mentored by. You want to find out more about this person. Do they, again, unlike back in the day when I started, you guys can find out so much about people through social media and Instagram and whatnot, about their interests, about their work. Because if you're going to approach someone, it's all good to say, oh my God, I'm just such a fan of your work, and have no idea about their work or not really familiar with it. You're gonna look like a fool. So if you're gonna, being a fanboy, just because you're saying, oh, I think you're awesome and I really love what you did, blah blah blah, that's lovely and that, but trying to stroke someone's ego, I don't believe is the way forward. Because here's the thing, we hear it all the time, and it's nice. I don't want to diminish that, but it's more important that you're authentic, that you're yourself, and by all means, be able to refer to the background, do some homework on the person, right? And rather than look at, most people when they network are looking as to what they can get. It's always about, oh, can I have a job? Can you, mentor me? They're looking to take, right? I'm going to encourage you to find ways in your research with that person to find out, how can you actually make a contribution? Okay, where is the value? Now you're going to think, well, what value do I have? I'm just a nobody. I got nothing. You're not a nobody. All of us have some kind of, and I'll give an example. I remember having I had a kid intern with me, no experience at this at all, like nothing whatsoever, but was exceptionally good at being a computer whiz. Now I'm an old guy, I'm complete Luddite. Have I can just turn the computer on. If something goes wrong, I'm lost. I'm technically inept. And so this kid was able to come in, help me with my computer. And I thought, wow, I got someone here who's going to be able to. So straight away, something of value that he was able to bring is like, okay, cool. Now you are all going to have things of value that you're going to be able to bring, whether it's you're a well organized person, you're social media, you're good at social media, you might be good technically at fixing things. So, or completely away from that stuff, I know that I've been impressed with people who have approached me and found common ground through something outside of music, which put us on a more equal level. So in my case, it was martial arts. So someone came across to me and we started talking about a subject matter where we were both equals, because we're both equally interested in participating and having. And so straight away, we were able to make connection, right? Everything's about building relationships, right? We are in the relationship economy. It always has been. It is now more so than ever. And the currency of the relationship, I say, is trust. People start getting to know you, then like you, and then trust you. And once you've established a level of trust with people, then again, it's like that validation. You don't have to try hard. You don't have to try and be someone that you're not. You've established something with someone. And these things take a little bit of time. So this is why I say, if you want to connect with someone, make sure this is someone that you want to connect with. Make sure it's someone that you are prepared to go the long haul and develop that slowly over time, so that person will realize, of course, this person wants something from me, but they're not just looking for that and that alone. Okay. And again, it's like, ladies, I'm sure that you could probably appreciate this. It's no different to a gentleman who is seriously looking for a relationship and taking their time with you to get to know you, as opposed to just wanting to have their way with you there and then on the one night. Okay. There's a very different dynamic. It's a very different approach. You're going to feel very differently about this individual. So think of it. It's a similar kind of thing. So that's where I see that's where I see people doing networking wrong, and so that's why I don't look at it as a strategy as such, but it's a philosophy and an approach towards it that I would encourage you to do. And yes, it's hard at the start. Of course, it's hard, but the more you do it, the easier it does get. Not everyone's gonna, some people may want to help you, and understand that mentoring isn't always about someone that's going to stick with you long-term wise. I personally don't want to have someone around me all the time. Maybe in initial stages, you may see a bit of them on a regular basis, and slowly my hope is that this mentor will get enough traction so that they don't need to be with me all the time. They're always welcome to come back, but I just don't want to build a relationship of dependency, and hope that kid will be able to maybe mentor someone else. This is why I say that real leaders don't amass followers, but they work to create new leaders so that they can go and rinse and repeat the process down the track, right? So sometimes someone will, again, when I think of the mentors, some people that just have one conversation with me, I still look back and think they were a mentor, because they gave me something significant that was of such value that it's something that I still carry to the day. And of course, there are people to this day that I still will talk to every now and again. And, I still think of them as mentors and respect them that way, but now we've become peers, and so we are able to talk with each other on a more equal basis. But I still hold that respect for them, the fact they still were a mentor to me, and they still are. I still hold them. I don't pedestal them, but I like I used to when I was younger. But I still have respect for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great way of looking at it. I think not looking at it as a strategy, but more of just like a way of how you go about your relationship building and life. Yeah, it's so great. we don't even have that much time left. I can't believe that's just whizzed by, but I wanted to invite anyone to ask questions if you want.
Yeah, sure. Of
If you
course.
have any, if anyone wants to
I'm
come
happy to.
on, we can unmute you.
I'm happy to stay with you as long as you need me.
Thanks.
I've allocated as much time as you want. Because like I
There's
said,
so much to cover with, like, well, also just
yeah.
I
Look,
love what you're talking about with life stuff
I
too, but
I will
yeah.
happily sit here with you guys and answer all the questions that you have for as long
Thank you.
until the last person. Okay. So
Great.
I honestly enjoy doing this. I think obligated is strong, but I do feel a sense of duty that because I was given so much help,
Mm,
um, I need to pay that forward, and I think it's important because
mm.
I
Yeah.
never it I never forgot that, and I still don't. You know.
If you think if everyone did that, how much of a community we'd have of, and that's really what we're trying to build with Pandion is just more, I think with the music industry, there's so much um kind of protectiveness about information and
Mm.
people sometimes feel, well, I got here on my own, you can get there on your own. But I think it's like that never happens. And it's not, you
Nobody,
never get there on your own. There's always
the self-made man is a myth. All right.
yeah.
Now, I had to do the work, but
Mm,
nonetheless, along the way, there were people who were thankfully giving me encouragement and help when it was asked for. Uh,
yeah.
and like I said, you will come across some people that feel that way, and that's on
Mm,
them, and that's on them. And it's important to, hard as it is, but it's important to not take things personally.
mhm.
If people are protective or overprotective or feel that they are somehow got the secret formula. No one's got the secret. There's no secret formula. Cliche.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but we're all learning. I'm still learning.
Well, thank you for giving back in this way because it's so needed, and I think people are so appreciative of it. And yeah, it's just nice to have that, just to make those connections and feel
Mm.
like there's other people who have gone through similar things or who started in a similar place, and it's just really nice to, yeah, it's nice to share that stuff.
Yeah.
I did
So
see somebody ask a little earlier if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the plugins that you use or any of like the more specific um, things that you use for mastering. I think people would like to hear that.
yeah, sure. Okay. So, being an old guy, I'm an analog person. I predominantly use analog. I'm not. Having said that, if I had to start from scratch again, obviously I'd be forced to do things in the box because when plugins first started, and then my first plugin I think was in late '90s. Um, it's really come a long way. There's so much better, and and the old purists will say, "Oh, it's not the same." And yes, we all know that, but they're still fabulous for what money you pay for and what you get. It's extraordinary. And if I had to start again, and I had no money, I'd have no problems doing things in the box. I did actually make an attempt to do it during COVID. But look, I take my hat off to people who can get great results in the box because much as I did try, I couldn't quite get it the same as doing analog, but I guess it's what I'm used to. But to try and answer the question, plugins for me are things that I use when analog boxes won't do it as well. So in this case, things like a de-essing. So I don't know if you'll be able to see my.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see, but just trying to pick up this. Okay, hang on a second. So you can see that so I usually have a de-esser because I haven't found this is a Waves de-esser. I haven't found anything in the analog domain that works as well. I also use one of these multi-band compressors, but I only use one band mainly to control the bass. I mean, there are analog multi-band compressors, but they're just, I think for the money that you spend for what you get out of them, this represents far, far better value. I also, if I'm going to use very small, just very minor tweaks, I'll use an EQ like this, a Pro, one of these Fab Filter EQs. So I do have some, and obviously just things like meters and let me see, where is it? Metering, digital metering. I also have my classic. Well, yeah, hello.
Hello? Oh, we're
Hang on.
still here. Yep.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
There you go. So I've
Great.
also got the classic analog VUs as well. So for me, they're the plugins I use most of the time. And yeah, I mean, there's just look, every day there's a new plugin, and you can really go down you can go down too many rabbit holes with it. I've got a system that works for me, and that doesn't mean to say that I have a cookie cutter approach, but I just know it works for me. And so for me, unless someone can come up with something that is so incredibly revolutionary that I'm not going to be able to do here, then I'll take a serious look at it. But other than that, otherwise, you can get to a point where you can have so much stuff, right? And then it's like, well, one thing I do see with youngsters is that they have this arsenal of plugins, hundreds of plugins, and they probably don't even know how they all work properly. And so you're better off, having a select few of 5, let's say 10, get very intimate with those, learn how to get the most out of them, really know how to, just juice everything that you can out of each piece. And maybe even learn how to use them in ways that are a bit outside the norm, outside the square. I mean, that's where the genius lies. People doing things in certain ways that are outside normal convention, but somehow they manage to do incredible things with it because they decided to explore and go, oh, what happens when I do that? Sometimes you have to break the rules. Yeah. I mean, there are certain conventions you need to follow, but then there are certain things that, who's to say that this is wrong or that's not the right approach? Or again, I'm not a purist, and I'm also going to say that I'm not technical either. It was something that contributed to my imposter syndrome, which hung around me for the better part of 25 years, because unlike my contemporaries and peers who started off in a classic interning position, were all mostly technically au fait, I wasn't. I didn't go through the system that way. My entry was quite unconventional, and so I didn't feel like I was one of the boys. And I honestly thought for many years, I thought, oh, they're gonna find out, they're gonna find out, they're gonna find out. I'm gonna be found out, and I'm gonna be ridiculed, and I'm gonna become an embarrassment, and I'm gonna be laughed out of town. Now that didn't happen, but that took a fair bit of therapy to get me over that. I'm not a technical person, and if any of you feel that you need to be super technical about it, nothing wrong with understanding and knowing it, but when it comes to music, it's art, it's about feeling, it's about emotion, and all these things are just tools that you utilize to help you create. A great painter doesn't have to understand how pigment is made and how the brushes are made and where the wood's created and how canvas is made, what sort of what sort of fibers to use. You don't need to know that. You just need to understand, I've got a vision. This is the medium, and I can manifest this via the paint and the brush and the technique just by doing what I'm feeling. I often say I work from an intuitive place, and now I see that as an advantage. Sometimes by getting too technical is that you become restricted and you become fearful because, I can't do that because the rules say, the handbook says it has to go this, and this. Like, well, no. So, and there's a lot of freedom in being able to operate when you don't allow yourself to be restricted by conventional norms, even though they're all in the handbook.
That's such a great analogy, the painter analogy. I think that's important to remember because there's so much you could focus on or you try to focus on, and it's like overwhelming when you look at all of it in a grand scale like that. But it's not necessary always. Not necessary to make good art, I think. That's so great. Well, it looks like we're at the end of our time already.
Oh,
You were chatting with me about something you were working on. Was it a conference, I think, if you wanted to talk
oh
about
yeah.
that, or a gathering?
So okay, so for those of you who are in Melbourne, um, at Revolver in Brunswick, on Thursday forgive me while you think I should know the date. I think it's the 7th. I think it's the 7th of November, where I'm doing a panel, and we'll have a panel of different people from the industry. We'll be talking again about getting your foot in the door, about networking.
Mm.
There'll be an opportunity for people to meet everyone in person, and also to meet other engineers and people. Again, we're trying to resurrect that sense of community, particularly
Mhm.
after the last few years with COVID and the lockdowns. People have been affected by that, and it's only now that I think people are starting to feel safe to sort of stick their head out from the burrow without getting their head shot off, from a lockdown. So, in a way to try and reinvigorate
Mhm.
that sense of community and for people to get together and whatnot. So that's Thursday, the 7th of November. So if you are in Melbourne,
Great.
tickets are free. Um,
Cool.
and if you go to it's on my Facebook page, I've got the event pinned up at the top of my page. So yeah, so it's free. It'll go for about 3 hours. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, it'll be informative and someone will get something out of it.
Great. That sounds awesome for anyone who's in this area. Are you recording the panel at all to put
I
it
believe
online?
I believe we will, and if we do, I'll
Okay.
certainly let you know, Jordan. Yeah,
Yeah, please do. That would be great. I'd love to share it.
yeah.
And then before we go, I just wanted to also let everyone know we're doing a little survey trying to collect more information from our community, to help us with our fundraising efforts. So if you haven't done that yet, I just dropped the link. We would greatly appreciate your participation with that. So yes, if you haven't filled out that survey, it's pretty quick and you don't have to fill out all the answers, but just anything you can add would be helpful. So thank you for that. And thank you so much, Tony. This was so lovely, wonderful to chat and get to know
Pleasure.
you more.
Pleasure. No, it's lovely to do that, and thank you again for those of you who stuck about with it. And as I said at the beginning, I sincerely hope someone got one thing that they probably hadn't considered,
More than one, I think.
maybe there's something there that's going to help people move on with a renewed sense of vigor and positivity towards what they do. So I sincerely hope
So
everyone's
great.
very best of luck with what they do.
Thank you.
Please understand before I go. Just please understand your success in this is in the process, in the doing. Just remember that a lot of people, the majority of people out there in the world are unhappy in the work they do. I know we have to work to survive, but I applaud the fact that you have the courage at least to pursue this, and you can do it alongside a job, and maybe you will get to a point where you can have less reliance, as I did. For me, it was a 21-year process going from exclusively having other bits of work to getting to the point where I built enough critical mass where I didn't. It was like a seesaw. All the money came from the outside work, no money here. But as the money came in, I just reinvested, and it's over. As I said, 21-year journey for me. May not be that long for you, but again, if you just stay focused, you never forget the reason why you're doing what you're doing, and so long as you're true to yourself in that aspect, then regardless of even on the really, really bad days, you will still do it because you've got a bigger vision for yourself as
Mm,
to why you're doing what you're doing. So, all right,
love that.
I'll leave with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Have a
Lovely,
great day
lovely to talk
and
with you all. Yeah, same to you guys.
lovely to
Take
talk to
care of
you.
yourselves. All right, all the
Thank
best.
you.
Yeah, bye
See
bye.
you guys.